Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome
Hey, what's going on?
to Carbonite Bounty BS. How are we doing today?
I'm good. Having a hard time hearing you. Speak up, buddy.
Audio's not good? That's not great.
That's okay.
But,
It's an important episode.
Yeah, definitely.
big episode. But before we even get anything, let's let DP let you guys know where to find us at.
We are back again. You just seen Eric on like the Nerve Comic Flick Show, talking about the Batman. Today we're going to be talking about Obi Wan and the big day, The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars Episode 5. So, but make sure that if you are watching us on YouTube right now, you are hitting that subscribe button and also hitting that notification button. So anytime that we're on, that we're on. We are Carbonite Bounty BS. We also have a Facebook page that you actually a Facebook group that you can actually go on and join and have all your favorite Star Wars memes and just Star Wars discussion. Period. It's called Carbonite Bounty BS, a Facebook group right on Facebook. If you are watching us, thank you for that. And make sure that you go into our website, and anytime that you want to catch us on social media, we're at Nerdcyclopedia on Instagram, Facebook, and also on Twitter. If you are listening to us in your car, on your phone, we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, we are there. And most of all, if you want to leave us some feedback on the stuff that you like hearing from us, nerds at nerdcyclopedia.com.
Really appreciate that, man. It's good. And as DP said, I mean, we have a lot of fun stuff across all our platforms, whether it be Carbonite Bounty BS here or, if you guys, look at some of our other podcasts, we just went over in all of nerddom, the review of the Batman. So please, as he said, interact with us on all our platforms as we move forward, as we try to keep you guys with the coolest content. But an interesting side note, they kind of broke this morning that, we kind of put in the group chat. I didn't anticipate this. I don't think anybody anticipated the dates. There were Super Bowl commercials. There was May the 4th. And then out of the air, my phone's blowing up. And I'm like, what is this YouTube notification from Star Wars? And I look, and once again, just speechless of what I've seen. I mean, so before we even get into our review of Empire Strikes Back, let's just dive into this breaking news of the Star Wars Obi Wan trailer. I'll start with Hitch because he's had some pretty hot takes on this. I mean, what were your initial reactions? Because when I seen it, I had to watch it like 5 times in a row just to make sure I thought I'd seen what I seen.
Well, I got an idea, and my idea is let's watch it now on this show, and then let's do a live reaction. That's my idea. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the Obi Wan Kenobi trailer.
The fight is done. We lost. Stay hidden.
The key to hunting Jedi is patience. Jedi cannot help what they are. Their compassion leaves a trail. The Jedi code is like an itch. He cannot help it. Where is he?
like that Disney. That
Yeah,
Disney.
exactly.
That
That's
was nice.
yeah. The saber slash really like tops it off for
Oh,
me.
yeah.
How awesome is that stuff? This is a piece of the canon that we've been waiting on for a long time. Luke Skywalker was protected by Obi Wan. Did he know him? Like, what was going on? How did you hide a kid that was like the most force sensitive kid ever on Tatooine, where we know you can't hide a kid that's really force sensitive? We watched him find him. They found him. Wow, it's super exciting. I'm really stoked for this series, especially after Boba Fett, because now we're getting to go like I say often on this show, that it seems like there are several days that are today in Star Wars. And it seems like we're getting one of those days in the middle, right around the Rebels time frame. So very, very exciting for those of us who just did an entire rewatch of Rebels. Super awesome. Really love it. Ewan McGregor, man. Oh, man.
Yeah. Looks like he
What
has
great
age today.
What great casting he was in like 97, man. And he really came through, all through the prequel trilogy, honestly, in a way that other actors didn't in that setting. Always very, very good. Always a very good mixture of his own characterization plus an Alec Guinness impression, which you got to do. You have to do. So I'm very excited. What do you guys think?
They had me an Inquisitor. We was talking, offline and everything. Once I seen the Inquisitors, that's some straight like Clone Wars Rebels type stuff. I'm like, yeah, you guys are just like, you're including everything. So you're not leaving nothing out. You're including the stuff and seeing like the spinning saber and everything. Oh man, that was just like it was some good stuff. I had some pretty intriguing stuff. So we get like a new character. I don't know who she is, but she looks like, real badass, if you want to call her that. So I can't wait to see, with that. It looks polished. It looks like a movie. It looks like it should be like, on the big screen and everything, seeing, Ewan McGregor back. I mean, it's good to see him after, such a long bout from like, the Star Wars universe and stuff. So just see him back and seeing what actually happens with Obi-Wan after the whole Clone Wars stuff. I'm stoked to see what's happening with this guy. How does he, what is his daily, activities and stuff? What is he hide? How is he hiding and everything? It's a lot of exciting stuff that I'm sure that we're going to see, but the Inquisitor stuff that just had it for me.
I second that as well, DP. The Inquisitors in live action. The spinning saber. I was just like, wow. But this seems like it's setting up, and I believe they said this. This is supposed to be Star Wars' darkest tale. The intro says it all. We failed, right? So we've talked about how fragile Kenobi has been mentally, and this is really that breaking point to where he grays out this kind of old man Kenobi. Maybe it ties into why or what happened, how he was in hiding. We go to episode 4 as we did the review. The Inquisitors are gone, so does he kill them all in the series? Once again, it's a short run, so they got, I think, a lot to pile in. But as we saw in Boba, we didn't think they'd finish it off in one season, but they did. So very excited for this series. So much to tie in. I'll tell you what. These Inquisitors. There's a couple Jedi, and I'm sure there'll be Jedi in here that survived that we'll see. They look like they're about to hack some people up. So it looks like we're going to get a lot of lightsaber action here. A lot of stories we didn't know. As me and Hitch always talk about more Sith type things. This was the future of the Sith. There was a rule of two, but there was no saying that they can have these Inquisitors, which were defected temple guards and whatnot, that were able to be force sensitive to have lightsabers, just not be lords. So very excited that they're going this route, and I can't wait till May 25th to review it with you guys that evening.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be great.
That's going to be awesome for it to come back on. What was the whole so it was a line they was talking about, like Jedi is it was just make it seem like the Jedis were like the bad guys and everything,
Well, you have to remember though, that guy, the Grand Inquisitor, was the Grand Temple Guard. So he was the guy literally that protected Yoda with the saber. So he literally knows everything about Yoda's order, which is interesting, And as we get into, The Empire Strikes Back, I think, as we talk about these stories and we get an Empire Strikes Back, it really leads us to believe how big of a failure Yoda's order was. it was really, as we say, he was the greatest Jedi of all time, arguably, and how the Order was. But I mean, you have the Temple Guards who were his most loyal people, now Inquisitors that fell to the dark side. How does your most loyal people, your guards of the Coruscant Temple, become people hunting their same people they defended down? So this story has a lot to tell, and these Inquisitors, I feel, have a lot to tell.
I'm excited. I think what they're saying when they say, like, it's just that Jedi's nature is they're going to go and they're going to oppress a lot of people and be really unjust. And the Jedi's sense of justice will force them to come forward no matter what they do. They won't be able to suppress it. So they won't be able to let things go by. And when they stick their head up to try to quit, get you to quit it, that's when you get them. So the Empire's like regime of brutality is measured to make the rest of the Jedi come out. So there's a purpose to the suffering they're inflicting, and it is to inflict suffering. That's diabolical in a way that really is like a new layer of diabolical for the Empire.
Yeah, right. For the Empire, right?
Like the like nihilistic, amoral empire, right? In science fiction, and we're getting another layer of depth to that now, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, and the cool thing, Hitch, as you said, is that's one of the Sith commandments, suffering. So you're really seeing that, which is empowering these dark side users, if you will, these Inquisitors, to be stronger with the dark side of the Force. Is this suffering is part of the laws, the commandments, if you will, of the Sith. So very interesting take on this. Like I said, this story looks very interesting.
How many commandments do they have? I mean,
well, there's pain, there's suffering, there's
suffering.
Wow,
really?
Pain and suffering are commandments. The damages you get in court.
Tradition,
Right.
That sounds like the stuff you see written on like a like the side wall of a football team's locker room. Suffering, tradition, pride. Like it's all.
The Notre Dame. That's like the Notre Dame locker room. You can say it.
Or like you go into like the Shazam cave and everything. All your like 7 sins and stuff. Just right there. I mean that's the Sith. I mean that's the Sith. The dark side, just in a nutshell. But I'm loving everything I'm seeing. The action it's what we seen with Boba Fett was more like the grounded, like the desert, desert, type of environment. We're seeing in Obi-Wan, to me at least, for the scenes that they showed us, more of like the city, more of like the some of the stuff that we seen in like Rebels and everything, and like Clone Wars and Bad Batch and stuff. More like the atmosphere, not so much is like in in the desert. Although we know that Obi-Wan does eventually, go out that way and stuff. But we're seeing a lot more scenery than what we did with like Mandalorian city stuff, more than what we did with Mandalorian and Boba Fett to a degree.
Right.
Of course, it's an important piece of the galactic puzzle. The capital matters, and who controls the capital matters in the society. So, I always thought it was weird in the original trilogy that we don't really see Coruscant at all. I always thought that was a wild thing to save for the very last montage of Jedi in '97, right? That's when they sort of said, "Oh, the Imperial City." So it's great to see more of the urban environments, because the one thing about the galaxy far, far away is its immense size lets you just do whatever you want as far as setting.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of science fiction. It's one of the cool things about stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, like we all said, interesting breaking news today that came up right before the show. So great to be live with us and great to pivot into things like that. Like I said, I didn't expect it to come when it came. So
yeah. I mean, we were all set to just go live with the Empire Strikes Back and everything. Here they bless us with the Kenobi trailer, which we've been long waiting for and everything. And May 25th, it just can't come fast enough. How many episodes is it supposed to be?
I think 6, right? 6 or 7,
like that. Okay, and I see they specifically labeled it as limited series, so
yeah,
I'm assuming this is just gonna be big beginning, middle, and end, and that's it. It's amazing how they're doing these movies, because I guess Obi-Wan could have easily been a movie, especially with McGregor, McGregor playing, but you got like a lot of story to I guess that they want to tell. And I guess Disney right now at this point, Lucasfilm is infatuated with what they're doing on the TV side or on the streaming side, that they feel that they could just pivot, this stuff like, to the TV streaming type stuff. But I could easily see this as like, Obi-Wan, Star Wars movie and stuff. Why not? Ewan is more than a capable, film actor, to carry like a movie by himself. So for him to do this, or come back to do this and everything is a blessing. It's a great thing.
And hopefully this is like a pilot. This is almost like another pilot where they have the A-list actor come in and do a set and then say, okay, we're done. And I think that, they pioneered this sort of thing on FX with American Horror Story and those sort of, periodical, the sort of serial sort of series, right?
Right, yeah.
And that's something that's really cool that they're bringing to Star Wars. And if this works and it's really successful and we can get A-type actors coming in to do series, I know Disney is looking to promote Disney Plus as the primary means of delivery because they control it like vertical monopoly. And so if I were Disney, I know that's where I'd be putting my eggs in my basket. And the fact of the matter is, this is Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, the show tonight, because Star Wars was modeled on that sort of weekly serial, blueprint. And so we've discussed on this show many times how we feel like when the show is leaning into that piece of itself, it's doing itself, a service. So I think that's a really great thing about how they're deciding to move forward. And look, Ewan McGregor is really good at, Obi Wan Kenobi. So this will probably be a really good series.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he did Fargo. That was really good.
Right.
He's in Fargo.
That's another example, right?
He played two characters, twins in Fargo.
Oh, geez, don't you know? Yeah, it was really great. It was funny seeing him because you're right. He had to put that balding wig on and the paunch. He had a paunch with one of them. So he's a dedicated dude. I'm excited. I feel like he was one of the guys that, one of the characters where they cast them, and I thought immediately this was a win. And he did such a good job. I think in all the times he got a chance to, even when he was doing that investigations in episode 2 that we hate, that we don't want to go into details. But he made that character compelling anyway.
Yeah. Despite the dialogue and everything, some of the story beats and stuff, I mean, Ewan pulled it off and stuff. Made us believe, he was a good, Obi-Wan compared to what we seen beforehand and everything, So, I mean, it's good when they can bring like A-listers, especially since like the A-lister actors, good premium film actors aren't getting a lot of jobs today. They're actually going on streamers doing work, like your Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot's and Dwayne Johnson's and stuff, because of the mega blockbusters that has to be on the big screen and everything. It sort of shoved a lot of the smaller stuff, to the side where people aren't really going to the show to see anything but a blockbuster, and everything else is, more the streaming. So the more we could get these actors and actresses to do like, the genre stuff on Disney Plus, on other streamers, it's a good thing, for us fans.
And it
definitely agree.
Benefit us on the Star Wars side, it benefits us on the Marvel side as well. So we want to see something like, we talked about how cool it would be to see like a Tom Cruise Tony Stark. I know, like we've talked about, like that would be a great variant. This gives the opportunity for things like that to happen, because if they can make these events like fun for the actor to do and like the production good, then they should be able to duplicate this process over and over until we get tired of it.
Yeah.
Whichever comes first.
Yeah, you think about it from the actor's perspective. They don't have to go to a foreign location and shoot for, 8 months, get away from their family.
Right.
These are in these small studios. And we've seen it, in Henry Cavill with The Witcher on Netflix. I mean, these A-listers, the money's there for them to be paid because the production on the back end of this not having to be a $400 million production, So that money that they were going to take aside for the movie, they can disperse more of some of these A-listers. So I really appreciate how some of these actors are thinking outside the box. They are coming on these platforms. We're seeing a lot more of these people doing these type of streaming shows. So it gives us more content. It makes a lot of these series more enjoyable, I feel like, because although Star Wars was built on, as we could say, no names or really introductory actors to some extent, even with Daily Ridley in them. These A-listers really take the production. When we saw Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, they really take that series to that next step. I feel like, and it's polished it even more. So very excited for the future of all these series, and like I said, May 25th can't come soon enough already.
Yeah, yeah. The end of May, it's going to be a great. It's already a good year for like Star Wars content and everything. Combined with like Marvel stuff. So yeah, it's always going to be something to talk about. So
Right.
yeah, stay tuned.
Definitely, which gives you guys reason to kind of discuss things. So as we pivot into the kind of, I guess, the meat and potatoes of the show, let's get into it. This is our Empire Strikes kind of rewatch or review. So I'll start with DP this time. What were your initial thoughts of your watch of The Empire Strikes Back?
I guess one of my bigger thoughts was I'm wondering why this movie meant so much to hardcore Star Wars fans and everything. What was it? What was it about the movie that just made you guys just like okay, this is the best one out of the trilogy. This is the one and everything, and it had a lot of good elements and good moments and stuff. You got to take into the fact that it was a sign of the times on how they how the pacing and everything. Pacing was a lot better than the first one. There was a lot of action, a lot of activity going. They split our heroes up, and had them semi come together, towards the end, but not really. And then we leave off in a cliffhanger, which I want to say, I think at that point in time, since you really didn't have that type of movie before, especially trilogies and stuff, Star Wars really started like the whole trilogy type thing. For you to leave on like a cliffhanger, leave a movie on a cliffhanger story and everything, it was probably
What
a
are you
big.
saying?
It was probably
Why are you screaming? I said I was getting.
it was probably like a big thing to have a cliffhanger actually happen in the middle of like a middle of a story. We got the first part of the story in like the A New Hope, and then we get the second part with the Empire Strikes Back. And all of a sudden, you're used to like a beginning, middle, and end, but we have Han. Han gets he gets put in carbonite and everything, and they're trying to figure out where he's at and everything. So I think I can't speculate because I wasn't I was just a young boy at that time. But we got the moth in the house. He's
Sorry,
in the house.
it was a Death Star I had to annihilate.
Had to release the garbage, into like the ether and then float away,
Float away with the rest of the garbage.
with the rest of the garbage. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, I guess at that point in time, and Ken, now that he's on, he could probably speak to this. It was probably a big impression left on a lot of people that the movie ended in a cliffhanger, which made it, in hindsight, one of the better, moves that a movie could make because it left a lasting impression for you to go into like the very next one. So, as far as like the whole movie, it was solid, faster paced than the first one. And very great interactions with like the characters, with our main heroes, and great introduction to Lando. I'm loving him.
Yeah. So we're talking about like Empire Strikes Back. So we're talking about the middle story in a space opera, right? So the first part we got was real, introduced the characters, was real happy, ended on a very high note. The next act is always dark. Always, it has to be. Some of the great operas out there, Madame Butterfly. The middle two acts are actually dark, so we don't get light until the end. But Empire Strikes Back fit the mold perfectly. For me, it's my favorite film of all Star Wars genre ever. I'm not going to give it a Ken out of Ken because it isn't. It's just my favorite movie. I mean, if this thing's on TV, I'm watching it. I don't care where it is. I'm watching it. I love the technology, the advance of the Empire, how fisty it is. I mean, the Empire cannot go wrong in this film. I mean, they have the rebellion running. They have the rebellion hiding on the coldest planet in the universe. Why would you build a base on a planet that's minus 80 degrees during the day? Does that make sense? That's not a good way to stage a rebellion from. So, I mean, this movie, I mean, we met Yoda. We met like Jedi learning to be Jedi, and how Luke Skywalker's advance into being a Jedi. Just a great film. Loved it. And stormtroopers could shoot in this one. Snow troopers could shoot. I mean, they were all very well trained, and everything was on point. Wampas. So so just the idea that this film is my favorite. I mean, there's just some cool stuff. Wampas, Tauntauns, and I mean, it just had everything. Had a lot of great stuff in it.
I don't know if you guys touched on it or not, but I mean, one of the interesting parts was, we discussed is how stubborn Luke was. I mean, at this point, it's kind of, you see his father in him, before we find out what his father was like, as his tutelage, kind of the frustration, as you will, as he's learning how to become a Jedi. I think one of the coolest things is when he's playing, when he's doing the lightsaber training. Shout out to the Star Cruiser that they let you do that for 30 seconds. But, that was always, the introduction to his training, how he's learning to become a Jedi. And, I guess we see even before prequel kind of Obi-Wan, the failure of a Jedi and how they really didn't prepare the younglings at all. I mean, as we see him trying to train Luke, it's really inherent, through his bloodline, what really guides him. Kind of like, as we tie into the sequel trilogy, Rey and how inherently she, in Grogu, how they inherently, through the Force, kind of guide themselves. So it was interesting to see Luke at this point, because when we first saw him, kind of we saw the great escape, as you will, from Vader's clutches. So I thought, this is kind of like 1A with me, with between this and Return, because that's kind of when he was peak Luke, as we say. But I really enjoyed this movie. It had a little bit of everything, which I liked. It had your story, had your action, and kind of had your cliffhanger there. So yeah, this was another great watch for me.
And the cliffhanger was great because it was there was despair, but then there was hope in the music. As
the music,
Lando flew off to find Han, we knew a lot of death had happened. There was a lot of misery and loss, but then there was also hope. So there's always this reoccurring theme in all these things, and in all the things that none of us can bash about Star Wars that we've watched, all hold this formula that you have very consistent themes, right? That you can connect, and hope is one, and despair is another. Like very strong. And I think Empire had a lot of it, a lot more than A New Hope or Return. I think there was a lot. I think this one really kind of focused on both, but really despair was the big element here. A lot of even on the Imperial side. I mean, heck, there were a lot of admirals going down left and right at Vader's hand. Vader was taking them out. The CEO of the company was taking out his board of directors left and right because Moff Tarkin wasn't there anymore.
Well, one of my favorite things about this is how ruthless this movie is, right? And I think that's what's so great about this movie is that we find out that the Empire is not a bunch of bumbling idiots that would do something so stupid and leave their super weapons so vulnerable, right? We find out, no, they're competent. And we see them systematically search the galaxy, find the rebels, make the right hunch. We see Vader do everything right. He knows exactly where they are. He hires the right people. He puts them in the right place. He does everything the way he's supposed to do. This is the Empire winning on a scale that we're just not prepared for. And I want to call attention to how many of the things that we think of Star Wars are originated here, not in that movie. The Imperial March.
Yeah.
The first appearance of the Emperor, although they've improved that Thankfully, it looks better now than it did back in the day, right? We have the word Star Destroyer. Star Destroyer shows up really here for the first time, and I think that there's bounty hunters, all that stuff just sort of shows up here. We see so much of what is core Star Wars comes from this movie, and I think you can really see, especially since we just watched Episode 4 a couple weeks ago, the difference between these movies, and it smells like money. It smells like money. The budget on this movie was so much better, and you can tell because everything looks better. Nothing looks cheap. Right. Nothing looks, when you look real close at it, like it's a Doctor Who set from BBC. It all looks really excellent. I really like the print too. I called this out in our chat. The way this print looks on Disney Plus is phenomenal. It is incredible. I used to think that Hoth was lit like an office. All the interior scenes looked like they were washed out. Everything was white. It looked like they had fluorescent lighting everywhere, which I thought worked in the context. But seeing it here where it looks like an ice cave, and this is what it looked like on the print. My goodness gracious. What a great opening to this movie. And I thought the exterior of Hoth looked really great too. The effects didn't age that much. And I think that they looked a lot better than Star Wars as well. Mm-hmm. So, when you think about the context of what this movie is, it works better than Star Wars does, I think, because it is actually a middle point. So there are threads from the previous film then that move through this movie and into the next one. It makes it feel tied in like a serial, which is again, I think, a core piece of what Star Wars is a serial. This is one of my favorite movies, like you said, Ken. And I will contend that it is one of the best movies ever made. I will give it 10 out of 10 myself. I will stand up for this movie. I love this movie.
I think if you begins watching Star Wars just as a super casual, okay, let me just check out Star Wars. This Return of the Jedi is on, let me just watch it without even having to watch like Jedi. Let me watch Empire Strikes Back without having to watch like Jedi or A New Hope and everything. This movie still stands. You can still get into it. It can still stand on its own. Of course, you have to see Return of the Jedi after it, to get the whole context. But you can start from there and have all right, so this guy, he's caught in like some winter type of scenario and everything, and he then all of a sudden
Jon Snow
and then this suave guy comes and tries to save him and everything, Han and stuff. So the basic story elements are still there from from beginning, middle to end. So you can actually come into it and still have it as like a good solid watch, without actually having to see like the other like the first one, from A New Hope and everything, and still get a gander of the characters. Han and Leia, they still have their chemistry where Leia is like a push and pull type of stuff. You could tell that Leia is still carrying that until the point where Han actually makes his move and everything, and lays it down on her and everything. But you could still go back to A New Hope and get like the origins and stuff. So you could start with Empire Strikes Back and put in any type of order to me, and still have it all make sense and still have it all feel good as far as like a good solid trilogy. Like Hitch said, they did a real good job with the production and like polishing it up to make us feel a lot more in universe and a lot more just a lot more in the whole mix of it when watching this. I could tell that they did polish some stuff CGI wise, I'm like, okay, I know it wasn't that polished in like 82 83 or something like that when it came out, but still they didn't do too much to distract. But I don't think even with that polishing that they did, I don't think it detracted from the movie at all.
Yeah, and 100% what you said, DP, and like the only relationship additive that you could get from Empire Strikes Back is the whole Han, Chewie, Lando thing, like the relationship with Han and Chewie and the introduction of Boba Fett and how those four interacted and what's their backstory. That was huge in Empire. If you saw A New Hope and you saw Empire Strikes Back, you're like, well, okay, now we're learning a little bit about Han. But here's like, if you saw Empire first and then went back and saw A New Hope, you'd be like, oh, you'd really get a little bit more of the background between Han and Chewie and how they were put together and how he got his ship, and a little bit more. So it was kind of like Empire Strikes Back built the backstory of Han a little bit.
It would be like, you're watching like a season of a show, Hitch was talking about, these are episodes and everything. You started with like Empire is like the beginning episode, then you get into flashback. So the good thing about this thing here is that you could start with Empire and then flash back to A New Hope, and that's your flashback story. And then you can, if you want to just skip over into Return of the Jedi, it all still works. It still works. That's the sign of, good storytelling. Now the dialogue, I mean, it's the dialogue and everything, but still the story in itself is what it is. And it just works. It works.
I want to stand up for the dialogue here. I feel like you're shortchanging it. Listen, your tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first marker. Then I'll see you in hell.
Beautifully written, and beautifully written.
Yeah, mentioned, I love you, I know, right?
Great line. Yeah, great line.
Everything Vader says is incredible in this movie. Everything he said.
I'm watching this movie and I'm seeing, okay, this is where they got it from. This is where they got it from. This is where a lot of the tropes that have been played over and over from like cartoons, from like, other movies and everything, even TV shows to a degree. This is where they got it from and everything. A lot of the tropey lines, I mean, it's really shameless how a lot of those stories just blatantly stole from Star Wars with their lines and tropes and stuff. I'm like, wow. And to hear it back, it's like, okay, well, we've heard all that before, but this is like the original. This is where they got it all from. So, I mean, it's crazy how you were talking about how hope happens like or doesn't really happen in like the middle portion. A lot of the stuff that people future directors or whatever bite off of is just the beginning and the end. They don't really concentrate on the middle, and you get like a lot of stale, just filler stuff from other future stories that just use the tropes as thinking that this was a big thing. So if Star Wars did this, all you need is like a guy who a guy who's trying to find himself and then a villain. That's it. No, it was a whole lot more to it than that. The Empire, Jedi, the Force, believing in yourself. It's a lot more stuff than just like, the hero and then the villain, and you make, some easy type plot, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm. The DPs, as you say that, these are one of the reasons I think me and you go back and forth in our arguments of outside nerddom and other things. Because for this movie, you can watch this movie without having to watch something else. And some of the things me and you argue about, these are the stories that I like, that it really started in sci-fi to where you didn't have to watch A New Hope. You don't have to watch Return of the Jedi. For this movie to be a singular movie on itself, you can watch it as a film with a beginning, a middle and an end. And that's what is really unique about this at the time. So where still we have a hard time having directors find that means to do that in a current movie, let alone in any other iteration in other movies. So I can really appreciate what Lucas did at this time, and how difficult it is even for current movie producers to really pull this off, because we understand that there's an overall story and he had a giant story, but for him to really close this off the way he did, and then for you to watch Return of the Jedi, as we'll get into next, each of these last two movies, you can watch them for themselves and have appreciation for just that film and not have to worry about as we talk about the sequel trilogy leading into the prequels. As a film itself, this stands out, as Hitch said, as one of the greatest.
Yeah, it had a big reveal in it. Yeah. Everyone likes the big reveal, and whether you were following it. I mean, I remember in the news when this movie came out, it was like hush hush. On premiere night, the next day, newspapers went crazy.
Really? Wow.
I mean, newspapers were leading with the reveal.
Wow.
Vader is Luke's
Crazy.
father. Yeah, they were leading with it.
Leading with
It was
on a
headline.
major
They
news.
didn't believe spoilers back then, I guess. The spoiler
Well,
alert.
No, yeah, there wasn't. Well, you know, you
What's
you,
funny
you you
about
got your news from a newspaper,
Right.
and that was it.
one of the first like message boards ever was live in the early 80s, and there was speculation I found on it from like 1982 about what
Mhm.
people thought was going on. A lot of people thought Vader was lying, just straight up lying to Luke.
Lying to get emotion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That is funny.
And on set, he said, Obi-Wan killed your father. And then Mark Hamill reacted like that because Hamill knew what the real line was, but no one else on set did.
No one else knew it, yep.
So everyone's like, wow, that's kind of crazy. His reaction's like a little over the top. They said it
Yeah,
was-
this film. I don't know if you guys talked about it, but this film, when the anticipation for this film to be released was immense. I mean, this was the one that they hid under the guise of Blue Harvest. That was the name of the film, Blue Harvest, and it was a slasher film. It was a serial killer film, like Friday the 13th, which was huge at the time. I mean, this was a huge franchise in the theater. So Lucas and the gang said, well, you know what, we're going to do a slasher film too. We're going to call it Blue Harvest, but it's actually Empire Strikes Back. I mean, there was such a buzz about this thing that, I mean, think about it. The biggest thing on America's mind at the time was this film coming out, and what's the big deal? What's the big question that's going to be answered? And
I'm always interested in like media stuff. So to hear that context and, you know, media obsession with like a movie, you know, of all things,
Mhm.
you know, with so much more quote unquote important stuff that's going on in you know, around the world and stuff. And here you are infatuated newspapers leading with, you know, the big reveal and everything, you know, like a sports team just winning a game or whatever, or a player getting traded to another team and all that stuff. You know, this for fiction, it
was huge, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, and think about it, early 80s, what else was going on?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you say it, though, think about it. The early '80s, what was dominated in the market? Horror films. I mean,
Yep.
for this sci-fi
Friday
movie
the
to come
13th,
out,
yep.
you know, you got
That's
your The Shinings, all this stuff. You know, this comes out, and you're like, you know, it's not the norm. You know,
Right.
and then for that to get that media fare, as you said, after The New Hope came out to this now, it's really touching the media that, like, you know, it was thriving, you know, your Stephen Kings and all these things. Here's this guy, this George Lucas, you know, guy coming out with some, you know, space, you know, sci-fi laser swords and all this stuff. And for you, like you said, you know, uh, Tarkin, for this to be dominated in the media like that at this time, very, very, very big thing, you know, that leads us, you know, 40 years later discussing the same story.
I think
Wow.
it's interesting. It's interesting to think of Star Wars in the context of the other media that was made, the copy Star Wars too, because you had like Battlestar Galactica, and then that was just a straight up ripoff. And so Star Wars, this movie had to basically decide what are the things from Star Wars the movie that are part of this universe, right? So the things that got duplicated, and I think that they did a really good job casting off the real campy stuff and keeping the good stuff. So just a big, and all the production looks so good. You know, we talk about how everything looked lived in Star Wars, and everything here looks lived in and complicated and real, functional, like it would just jump off the wall and start, you know, running. Just really awesome set design, really great. And I noticed on this print as well that the set design, like in Luke's recovery room, it's not just like tan panels. It's actually staining on panels, like wearing and staining on panels that you can see in the new print. So, man, maybe I was trying to get a different type of perspective on this rewatch, but I was so distracted by how gorgeous everything looks in 4K. My God, it's really.
You saw it in 4K. So during that scene, did you hear the intercom?
I heard there was an intercom. What were they saying?
So Luke's there on the bed, and Han and Chewie and Leia all of a sudden leave because of what they heard on the intercom. What does the intercom say? Did you hear it? all they say is important personnel report to the command center. Just important personnel. So they all left. Important personnel report to the command center. It says it twice. That's it. I figured you'd be able to hear it better on like a better. If you watch the VHS, which I did, it's really hard to. Yeah, I have the 1983 release of like on Fox Films, a VHS of Empire Strikes Back. I watched that, and you can't even hear that. But on the newer, like the DVD, Blu-ray, you can hear it.
That's incredible. I wouldn't even watch that VHS. Seriously,
there were so many different compositions in this that the widescreen matters. I feel like like you're saying, I saw that movie so many times on VHS that the stuff on the edges isn't even there in my memory. So every time I watch this movie now, it's like watching like 1/3 of a new movie on either side.
I'm impressed on how they move the characters like in different positions. So you have Luke really at the beginning, and then he gets really taken off the board, and then we're concentrating on well, not taken off the board, but he gets his own solo adventure, and then we go back and forth between him and then the rest of the crew. Han, Leia, Chewie, and
they get separated, right?
Yeah, they basically get separated. We meet Lando's introduction. He just makes the whole, he makes things pop, when he's on screen and everything. So I love
Billy D. Williams.
Y'all, man, he's
up and coming star at the time. I mean, he was big.
And I'm harkening back to his times back on was it Rebels? Yeah, Rebels. And his hijinks and stuff. I mean, this is the same guy. I mean, same actor, doing the same stuff, and I mean, I'm loving the guy. It's crazy, and I'm like, man, I forgot he betrayed. He sold out, Luke like that. I'm sorry, Han and everybody like that.
He had to.
Yeah, I mean, he had to do what he had to do and everything. But I mean, he pops when he's on screen, and then we didn't really even get like any type of interaction with Lando and Luke when Luke got rescued and everything. That was I love how characters are positioned away from each other and then come back. It's sort of the same way that 7, 8, 9 tried to do with the the three heroes from there. But I don't think they did we'll get to that.
Before we start, Matt, remember the scene when Luke is now on Bespin, right? And he's causing chaos. And now Vader and the Empire is like, they're disrupted and they're able to escape a little bit. Lando looks back over his shoulder to see who this Luke is. That the expression on his face, he's like, who is this guy? I need to see him because I've heard so much about him. Mm-hmm. It was like immediately we're going to get some sort of connection between the two. I thought that was like you were saying, DP, they built these characters up separate, but then when they're together, they already know each other.
Right.
They're already familiar with each other. Right. And that was that whole scene from like whatever point that is, it's like the last half hour, 35 minutes of the film when we're bringing the heroes all together in one place for one goal. They don't know it yet. They don't quite know how it's all going to play out. But I love that scene when he looks over his shoulder like that to look through the doorway just as it closes. Like, who is this guy?
Right.
Skywalker.
Yeah.
Why is he causing all this ruckus? I mean, because he's the guy that causes ruckus.
And what foresight that Lucas had to even, I don't know how he had this all planned out, and you can sort of see it in like, the text and everything okay, I'm going to split these people up, bring them back together in like the sequel. So that's why you have like the anticipation from each movie to movie, because you're totally invested in characters. I love characters. I love character development. That's why we were talking about, me and T-Mitch action versus character development. I love character development when you could get
Hitch, you see him right? He's digging his own grave as we speak.
I'm so excited to see this movie. Just in case, just to unmeta this. So I have not seen the Batman yet, and so I was not present on the review this week.
This isn't even about that.
This not isn't even about
that.
No, it's not even.
This is about Endgame. He's digging the grave for this movie. Where the character development from? There was none, right?
Okay.
He's digging the grave, but anyways.
All right. See, we're
But
gonna
anyways,
have
yeah,
you
we're
know,
gonna have a nerd court
yeah,
show
we're
for you
gonna have,
guys.
yeah, definitely.
T-Mitch is like getting ready for the sequel trilogy. Like,
It's guys, I'm telling you now, it's gonna be epic. It's
Oh
gonna be
yeah, the
epic.
sequel trilogy. That's gonna be just some
Oh,
picking apart. Putting it. Okay, yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
here's what's interesting.
Preview,
I'm
teasing.
so excited to talk about the what it means to not have a canonical like timeline anymore, right? What
Right.
does that mean now that it's a multiverse? Does any of that does that sort of diffuse the dogmatic nerdery a little bit? Because it's just a different, slightly different, spin on the tale. I don't know. It's
Who
interesting.
decided that? Though? Who said it has to be? It can't be a multiverse. Why not? Who decided that? We are accepting it because we're paying attention to it.
It's interesting to think about the historical formulation of religions and how they go through phases where the original founders are there and then they're not anymore.
And they're not.
So the question becomes, what really happened and what's the story actually about? And then there's an argument about, what really is the story about? And so that becomes a big thing in the second generation. And then the third generation comes in and they say, you can do anything you want. It's all pretty much valid because we don't know any of the people that saw any of this stuff. So there's no way for us to say your take on it's more legitimate than this take. And then as the religion becomes more adapted, the state or the hegemonic power structure comes in and says, no, this is what the religion is, and sort of imposes itself over the top. And those are the stages of the adoption of a mass religion, just sort of viewed from, without talking about any specific religions, because that pisses people off.
I prefer to be in the second stage because that's the free thinking stage. I don't want anyone telling me what it was supposed to be. I'm going to view it and I'm going to breathe into it what I think it is.
Right.
What's so fascinating about this is that when Star Wars was sold to Disney, I thought, this is a big monolithic corporation with money. They're going to come in and smash, right? They're going to say, this is what the real story is. And then they sort of did that when they killed, the Legends series.
When they killed the Legends, yeah.
And so there was this idea, I think, at the time that they were going to be doing, this is what Star Wars is. They're trying to tell us what Star Wars is. And I think that, and we'll talk about this later, but I think some of your problems with Episode 8 is that's what it does. It tries to say this is what Star Wars is. It's this specific thing.
Right.
But now, Marvel has really set the stage and led the way with this idea that content is better with a diverse amount of flavors, when it's not all exactly the same, when it's a little bit different. And I think that we're going to see the fruits of that in Star Wars first, just because Star Wars already has animation and different eras and different characters and times, and everything is a differing mixture. So I'm looking forward to this free world.
Yeah. And as we discussed this Empire Strikes Back, and before then we discussed the Obi Wan Kenobi trailer, as I was just kind of thinking about Empire Strikes Back, I think they leaked a pretty big character in the middle shoot of that trailer. But I didn't catch early, but now when I was just kind of looking at some images of Empire Strikes Back. We might get our early, our first view of a legendary character here. You guys have any idea who that is?
Mm-mm.
So when watching the trailer, there was a scene in the alley in a specific blaster that belongs to somebody. I'll let you guys fill in that blank. You still get a blaster? No. There is during the Obi Wan Kenobi trailer. I don't know if Hitch wants to play it again. There is a blaster when an Inquisitor is staring this person down. It's a very specific blaster.
Well, I only know one person that has a blaster that's specific.
Okay.
That's who that is. So I'll just keep that to myself.
You already know. So
could it be Ezra?
You'll see it and you'll know.
I'm excited to see what they do with Ezra, but I think I know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm gonna start digging now.
I caught it and I was thinking, why would you show that scene? And it was the shadow of it and everything. I was like, wow.
That specific attachment on the top of it.
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, I mean, another fun episode here as we continue our march to Obi-Wan. I mean, like I said, it's kind of like the the pinnacle of the spring here. As we get into the Star Wars hot season, as we get into the spring, we get into Star Wars celebrations, we get into May the 4th. A lot of interesting things, ears pricking up at Lucasfilms, a lot of shows coming out, you know, a lot of talk, Andor coming out, they're already talking about a season 2 for that series. So, you know, so much content for us to
Ready?
discuss.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're already talking about a season 2, so they're already thinking it's going to be a slam dunk. But and it's more of the things that Hitch likes to see, more of your, we talk about it. It's not just Jedi and Sith. Rogue One was a great movie, and
Yeah.
there wasn't what 10 minutes of lightsabers in it, if that, 5 minutes. So, these stories that this and Ken has talked about. This is the universe is so diverse. It doesn't have to be about Jedi and Sith all the time. We can see these stories. We can see these rebels. Really rebel alliance stories of the birth of the rebellion and kind of what that went through is as Cassian said. I've been doing this since he was what 5, 6. It's nice to see these stories and how they evolve and how these characters evolve, and very interested to see. My personal opinion as we got off is I think as in the future, what they're going to do is even in this Luke series, I think we're going to see a young Princess Leia. I really think we're going to see it. They don't have to do Carrie Fisher. They're going to do a young Princess Leia.
They have to.
They're going to do it.
Young.
They're going to show his sister. So we'll see a young Leia, which will be like, it's just the way they're building this stuff. And, as we discuss this, as we said, episode 5 review, I mean, it all started here, and look where we are 20, 40 years later,
Still, I mean, I'm thinking, okay, well, after 6, what happened between 7, 8? I mean, I'm sorry, what happened between 6 and 7? So, what are they going to do to fill in?
Mando. That's Mando and Grogu. That's what they are.
That's Mando, Grogu, and hopefully that's the Luke series. But based on the timeline and the shows they have, that would have to be like 2025. I mean, what's up with Vader? We'd still like to see a Vader story. That would be a big one.
There was Vader breathing in that Kenobi trailer.
Yeah, there was Vader in there.
That check has definitely been written, and they've confirmed it.
There's 2 fights, but I'd like to see a Vader series. Hopefully we see more of Mustafar. We're getting the Inquisitors, so yeah. I mean,
they put out a Vader series, but it's just like one of those Yule logs of him in a bacta tank.
I know I missed when you guys were talking about the Kenobi trailer, but you know what my favorite scene was?
Spinning lightsaber.
No, Luke on top of his house.
Yeah.
Steering. And Kenobi, the look on his face, like he knew there was something there. There was potential there. There was just a connection. I thought that was that was great. See, I mean, a lot of cool stuff, but I thought that piece of the trailer was like my favorite. Like seeing Luke flying something. He doesn't even know what he's flying yet, but he's flying it, and he's going to be very, very good at it.
That also foreshadows, Ken, though, if you think about it.
That's Anakin.
Exactly. That's the first time he met Anakin. He was flying the pod racer, and he was kind of pretending like he was in. Yep. Remember, he was in Watto's cockpit when he met him. So it kind of ties the character together. Yep. So it kind of ties that story together. So, I mean, the detail, as we discussed, that these guys go to, in the Easter eggs they drop us to, that ties all this together. It's phenomenal in my eyes. I can't wait. Love discussing this every week with you guys. I mean, what better way to cap off a weeknight than discuss Star Wars are a bunch of nerds, right?
One other nerd thing, just on Empire. Biggest cameo in the movie. DP, what is it?
Biggest cameo. Oh man.
Think about the time it was released. Biggest cameo.
I can't think of it. I watched the movie over like 3 days. So
I'll give you a hint. It's somewhere everybody knows your name. And he ended up, when he grew up, he became a postman.
George Brent, Ted Danson? What?
No, man.
Close. John Rutzenberg, I think his name is.
Okay.
He was the rebel soldier that told Leia that the shield doors had to be closed because it was getting too cold and Han and Luke were still outside.
Oh, okay.
From Cheers? the mailman.
She tried to be like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "It's cold
okay.
out there. You know, you don't want to be out."
It's a big nerd thing, and I just gave that to everybody in the world right now because it is a Trivial Pursuit question that you can win now. You can win this Trivial Pursuit question. Yeah, and I think I forget what I think the question is something like, what movie does everybody know your name, actor played in? And you say Empire Strikes Back, and it explains that Cheers, the mailman from Cheers, is in Empire Strikes Back.
Interesting.
Watch the movie now. You'll see the guy. You'll be like, oh my God, he put on like 100 pounds. That's why I didn't recognize him. But that's him.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you just got an interesting fact to get an answer ahead of everybody on Trivial Pursuit. So thank Tar-Ken when we're at the final question of Trivial Pursuit and it comes up, and now you have the answer in 3 seconds.
That sixth piece of pie. You got it.
Interesting way to end the show, guys. And like we discussed before, next week, DP, we're going to pivot to we're going right in episode 6.
I believe so. Yeah.
So we will see you guys next week at a breakdown of episode 6. And like we say all the time, guys, please interact with us on all our platforms. We don't discuss Star Wars here. We discuss movies, all cool things nerddom wise, as far as, across all of our platforms. So please always interact with us on our Facebook groups. Please smash a like, and obviously please give us those ratings on all our other platforms or listening podcasts live and or at a later point. So really appreciate you guys, and until next week, this is the way.
This is the way.
Right.